So let's start with the COP26 Climate Summit in Glasgow. Almost 2 weeks of negotiations have ended after delegates agreed on stepping up efforts in the fight against climate change. Expectations were high. A deal could be the next step in averting catastrophe, and the reaction is mixed. Timothy Ulrich reports.
I declare the third session of the Conference of the Parties serving as the meeting of the parties closed.
Grueling, long hours of debate concluded Saturday in Scotland. Almost 200 delegates from around the world took part in discussions that sometimes went well into the night. The biggest concern, avoiding going over the tipping point.
This is real progress in keeping 1.5 degrees within reach. Progress that we have made together. But the need for continual action and implementation to match ambition must continue throughout this decade.
A last-minute move from India extended the debate into the evening. Their delegate raised issue with the agreement, saying phase out coal. Instead, he said it should read phase down. That made it into the final text, but it was protested by some.
This commitment on coal had been a bright spot in this package. It was one of the things we were hoping to carry out of here and back home with pride, and it hurts deeply to see that bright spot dim. We accept this change with the greatest reluctance.
The mention of coal and another on fossil fuels were a success in their own right. The two had never been put on a COP agreement before. What's known as Article 6 of the Paris Agreement was put into motion. It will set rules for an international carbon trading system. The deal also called on wealthy nations to follow through on a past pledge. They had missed their deadline last year to provide $100 billion in funding for mitigation in the developing world. It also calls on the global north to at least double support for adaptation measures in poorer countries. Many nations had been hoping to see more assistance to be pledged.
Developed countries need to help developing countries strengthen their capabilities to address climate change so that countries can work together to address the climate crisis.
COP26 has been a failure. We need to phase out, not phase down.
Critics say the summit was a letdown. An agreement on losses and damages due to climate change for developing nations was left out of the final deal, and that decision could prove to be fatal.
It's a death sentence for the poorest people on the planet, and not only that, the polluters are saying, we don't care, we're not going to give you a penny.
Countries strengthened pledges to cut emissions, but there's still an uphill battle. Energy Transitions Commissions reveals how much. It shows the current pledges will cut carbon emissions by 9 gigatons or 9 billion metric tons. The report says another 13 gigatons of carbon emissions need to be cut. Otherwise, we will fail by the end of the decade to meet the Paris Agreement goal to keep it under 1.5 degrees by the end of the century. Delegates departing the COP26 summit will have their work cut out for them. Another takes place next year in Egypt. Timothy Ulrich, CGTN.